Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to another show at Kardec Radio. And today, it is about the science and genetics of mind-body healing. And we have here with us the expert in the field, Dr. Herbert Benson from Harvard University and the Massachusetts General Hospital. He's simply the pioneer of mind-body approach. He is the very Herbert Benson that in the 70s coined the term relaxation response. You'll hear much about it and much more. And there is so much to share with you because this program today goes hand in hand with the teachings of Kardec. When we go to the Spirit's Book, question 32 of the Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec, when Kardec wants to know more about the healing qualities of certain substances, certain components in nature, the spirits explain that they are modifications of this elementary matter in the universe, and they will be perceived by our organs according to our own disposition. Here, the spirits are telling us quite clearly that it depends on something peculiar that happens inside of all of us. So, we have a lot to share with you, and of course, if you have a question, you can call in at 858-769-4705, and we'll be able to open the line after a few moments that we talk to Dr. Benson. Dr. Benson will share with us the latest scientific research in regards to mind-body healing. It's fascinating, and the most fascinating part of it is how science is getting closer and closer to what we already understand in the revelation of the spirits. Also in this program, we're going to have the special segment, Kardec Radio Response. It's a question that a listener sent to us about forgiveness, and the answer comes directly from Emmanuel. Later in the very program, Kirsten DeMello is going to tell us about a feature in the Law of Preservation in the Spirit's Book. It's specifically about finding balance. Dr. Magalhães is going to tell us about faith, prayer, and science. John DeRosa and Steve Shepard are going to read questions 29 and 36 of the Spirit's Book. And Luis Sergio Marotta is going to share with us a summary of the past 9 programs in which he unveiled the interpretation of the introduction of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Later on, Bernadette Leal with Spiritism for Children and Youth. She's going to teach parents about parental detachment. And also we'll stream here interviews that were done at the 3rd Spiritist Conference in Florida. And at the very end, a most sweet moment with the music Free by James Marotta, sent to Kardec Radio, as well as the final prayer done by the 7-year-old Teresa Wall. She was in a conference we're giving in Richmond, Virginia, and she kindly offered her beautiful voice to say the Lord's Prayer. It's the most beautiful show. It's all about the healing of the mind and the boosting of the body through the mind. So to kickstart the program, how about the message by Joana de Angelis in the book and CD, Living and Loving, by Joana de Angelis through Divaldo Franco. It's about keep your optimism. If you want the CD or the book, just go to the bookstore of the Spiritist side of Baltimore at www.ssbaltimore.org. And after the break, Dr. Herbert Benson from Harvard University, the leading expert in the field of complementary medicine, here with us at Kardec Radio.
Chapter 6. Keep Your Optimism.
The dispirited companion who walks by your side may be facing a crucial ordeal. That friend of yours who slipped into delinquency may have tried hard to avoid crime. The other one who succumbed to vice may have fought against it but was not strong enough. The co-worker who discontinued service might have tried to stay in his place but was unable to comply. The friend who suddenly became your enemy may not have been able to overcome his pernicious tendencies. People acting negatively need understanding rather than criticism. Some might have wished to act differently but could not help themselves. A few others may be secretly trying to fight their negative drives. Many may have already acted as anonymous heroes but are now in disgrace. All of them need a new opportunity to prove themselves, that they can change their behavior. They may never ask for help. Still, they should be given a new chance. Consider the positive side of people's actions and forget their weaknesses. Do not reject them. It is easy to fraternize with nice and diligent people always willing to cooperate and serve. It is agreeable to enjoy the company of worthy persons. But they also have problems of which you probably know nothing about. The earth is both a school and a hospital for unhealthy souls. Nobody living on earth now is an exception from this rule. It is useless to seek the company of angels, since they are not incarnate on earth now. All people on this planet bear the same characteristics as yourself. They suffer, have their own limitations, and they want to live in peace, and they dream with happiness. Try not to comment on the deficiency of others. If you cannot help them, keep silent and excuse them when they hurt you. Do not be disheartened by their behavior. If you know what you are looking for and are willing to serve, go on acting as you know best, and be gentle to all who come your way. Do not harbor grief or disappointment within your heart. Be an optimist. Help those who have gone astray back to the right road. Abandoned and betrayed, Jesus was never disheartened. Never did he display resentment. He was the great winner of all the battles that life reserved for him.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Available for purchase the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
And now we return to our program.
We're here with Dr. Herbert Benson, who is a pioneer in the mind-body medicine, one of the first Western physicians to bring spirituality and healing into medicine. He has written more than 190 scientific publications and more than 12 books, including the very one we're going to talk about, Relaxation Revolution. Thank you so much, Dr. Benson, for being with us here at Cardiac Radio today.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Benson, it's amazing because in this book that was put together by you and William Proctor, it says that it's the first disease-by-disease guide to enhancing personal health through therapies based on the science and genetics of mind-body healing. So you begin the book by recapping one of your most striking discoveries about the relaxation response. People often talk about the flight and fight response, which is the stress response, but you've discovered that there is a relaxation response. Can you please tell us more about what it is?
Yes. Humans possess the ability to react to stress by the fight or flight response. One's blood pressure increases, heart rate increases, rate of breathing increases, specific brain waves occur, and preparing you for running or for fighting. Now, many of the stressors that we are preparing for with the fight or flight response are not tangible. In other words, it's not always a tiger or an assailant in front of you, but the thoughts of stress can evoke the fight or flight response. You worry about your health, your family's health, your financial problems, your ability to make deadlines. All of these evoke the fight or flight response. But when that occurs, we don't run or we don't fight. But the body is still being influenced by the stress hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, also called epinephrine and norepinephrine. And this often leads to or makes worse a number of different diseases. In fact, in the West, 60 to 90% of visits to doctors are stress-related.
Wow.
And these are poorly treated by drugs or surgeries. And what of these include? Obviously, anxiety, depression, insomnia, stomach pains, high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, rheumatoid arthritis, premenstrual syndrome, infertility. They're all affected by stress, and there are no drugs or surgeries that can take care of them. So it's fortunate that we have within us a response opposite to the fight or flight response, and that's called the relaxation response. And when that is brought forth, there are changes that include decreased blood pressure, decreased heart rate, decreased rate of breathing, specific changes in brain waves, and also there are changes in the activity of your genes that are opposite to those of stress. And to the extent that any disease is caused by stress or made worse by stress, to that extent, bringing forth the relaxation response is an effective therapy.
So, practically speaking, this relaxation response begins with our awareness of our breathing?
The relaxation response can be brought forth, evoked, by many different techniques. The basis of all of these techniques is that you break the train of your everyday thinking. And to do so, two steps are often necessary. The first is a repetition. That repetition can be a word, a sound, a prayer, a phrase, or a movement. And the second step is when other thoughts come to mind, you disregard them and come back to the repetition. Those two steps break the train of everyday thinking. Now, there are scores of techniques that evoke the relaxation response that have been around for thousands of years. They include, for example, repetitive prayer, such as the rosary. They also include yoga, tai chi, qigong, meditation, various forms of meditation. They all break the train of everyday thinking. So we have really discovered nothing new. What we have done is defined the relaxation in modern terms. That is, in scientific terms that can be measured.
That's fascinating and quite humbling as well. And as you're mentioning this, it brings forth one of the statements in your book talking about the power of the mind in healing the body, in organizing, reorganizing the body. So what is this mind then? When you mention about the mind and body connection, what is this mind? If the mind is capable of reorganizing, readjusting the body's response, what is this mind then for you, Dr. Benson?
It's very difficult to define mind. In fact, many people have argued about what is mind, what is consciousness. This has been, it's not well defined, but we know that our thoughts can influence our body, and thoughts, most believe, are generated by the mind. Now, the thoughts are often those that are stressful. What if my pain is cancer? What if my child, what if my loved one is very ill? Is that a dangerous thing occurring? Am I going to lose my money? Am I going to lose my job? They all are thoughts, and they evoke the fight or flight response. But on the other side of the spectrum, we also can use our thoughts and our behaviors in a positive way to evoke the relaxation response. We can have thoughts that bring forth meditation. We can bring about movements through our behavior that bring about yoga. We can pray, all of which effectively shut off a portion of our brain that is creating the stressful thoughts.
And then in that line of thought, you propose in the book, you have a quite extensive disease by disease approach on how this relaxation response can tame, I would say that way, each and every disease. So this is the treatment part in chapter 7 is quite a chapter in that regard. So can you tell us about a main highlight for you in regards to the treatment approach in the relaxation?
Yes, thank you. The treatment approach should start with a person bringing forth the relaxation response. And they could use any technique with which they're comfortable. So one could meditate, one could pray repetitively, one could do yoga. And once you bring forth the relaxation response, you have these changes in the body that quiet the mind. And that quieting mind then is open to bring about more healthful behaviors. For example, one could visualize yourself when you were without the stress and when you were well. You could remember yourself, for example, not having, for many, a pain, not having a problem that's leading to, say, insomnia, that's leading to irritable bowel disease, leading to rheumatoid arthritis. And then by visualizing your healthy state, you could eliminate the stress-related aspects of a disease. Many diseases, for example, tension headache, could be cured by these steps. Others, let's say, are 50% due to the stress, say high blood pressure. Doing the relaxation response, bringing it forth, then can eliminate and treat that disease. And often, under a doctor's supervision, you can decrease your medication. And we've shown that with high blood pressure, for example. And other diseases, of the 60 to 90% are stress-related. To the extent that stress is causing the disease, these steps will alleviate the disease.
Wow, that's amazing. But Dr. Benson, some people may not be able, or they may not feel capable of doing it by themselves. So, for example, you created the Benson Harry Institute at Harvard that also provides training, coaching for people who want to learn more about the different pathways to developing this relaxation response. So would you encourage them to either talk to their doctors or find other coaches or people who are trained?
Yes. A person can, first of all, recognize that they have this power within them. That is, they have the power to bring forth a natural, inborn response that they have. Then it's a question of choosing a technique with which they're comfortable. If you're religious, one could pray regularly. If you're secular, you could use a secular technique such as yoga or meditation or what have you. And there are many, many different groups throughout the world that are teaching that use this formula. They'll often center on one technique, but the individual can choose a technique with which she or he is comfortable. And yes, we do this at the Massachusetts General Hospital, at the Benson Henry Institute, and at Harvard Medical School. We teach thousands of people how to evoke the relaxation response, but we give the patient, the person, a choice of the technique that they're using. The choice is up to them. And one has to then, to have it work, we found, to have this work effectively, we have found that it should be brought forth on a daily basis. And it's striking the potential that these approaches have, but they cost time. But look at the money saved in drugs and surgeries provided under proper supervision. A person brings forth a relaxation response. And the person should recognize that they have this capacity within them. And to the extent that their disorder or problem is caused by stress, bringing it forth can help them.
That's amazing. It's very hopeful. It brings a lot of hope. Dr. Benson, we're going to give a short break. When we come back, we're going to know more about prevention of disease as well.
We will return to our program after these messages.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Come for the beautiful event sponsored by the British Union of the Spiritist Societies. It is the second British Spiritist Congress on May 11th and 12th at the Quakers Friends House in London, United Kingdom. For more information, please go to www.buss.org.uk.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of the Spirit's Book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. Spiritism for Everyone meets every Wednesday evening and Saturday morning using the latest technology in web conferencing. You can join in from any computer in the comfort of your home or office, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is open, free, and requires no registration. To access the web live meetings, go to www.spiritus.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
We're back with Dr. Herbert Benson, who is the leader in the relaxation revolution. It's also his book with William Proctor. It's the first disease-by-disease guide to enhancing personal health through therapies based on the science and genetics of mind-body healing. Dr. Benson is also the pioneer mind-body medicine, one of the first Western physicians to bring spirituality and healing into medicine in more than 40 years of his career. He's currently the director emeritus of the Benson Harry Institute and professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Benson, before the break, you were telling us about the amazing potential of shifting our health and gaining greater wellness by bringing forth, as you mentioned, the relaxation response. And it's not only about treating a disease, but also, as you mentioned in this book, the importance of preventing disease. Can you tell us more about how the relaxation response can possibly, according to science, prevent diseases?
A person experiences stress their entire life. Children have stressors. Older people have stressors, and they often lead to problems. And these problems are often behavioral. A person might, for example, drink excessive alcohol. They, for example, use illicit drugs or use too many drugs. Mm-hmm. And one should learn early in life that they have this inborn natural capacity within themselves. And that's why our institute, the Benson Henry Institute, has the educational initiative. And there we're training teachers and parents to train their children in how to evoke the relaxation response. And a young person can learn they have this capacity within them. And in fact, one of our members of our institute, Marilyn Wilshire, has written a book called Grab a Tiger by the Toe. Mm-hmm. And that's a step-by-step guide on how a parent can teach his or her child how to bring forth the relaxation response. We're carrying this out we're teaching this, carrying out our programs throughout the country and the world, where young people are learning an acceptable technique to them and their parents that'll bring forth the relaxation response and prevent diseases that are stress-related.
That's amazing. It will probably change people's lifestyle by incorporating the triggering of the relaxation response, right? Based on your research and the evidence brought in by so many decades of investigation, can you tell how much the bringing forth of the relaxation response may change people's lifestyle?
We've often had patients, and who report they are a different person once they've started regularly evoking the relaxation response, because so often the stressors that a person has are often influencing their life. And to bring forth the relaxation response on a regular basis, we've recently shown actually changes your genes' activity. And what genes are changed? The genes that are changed are the genes that control the overall energy of the metabolism. They control the insulin-producing cells of the body. They change the genes that are affecting the immune system. And they also change the genes that are affecting the aging of cells themselves. And again, we have discovered nothing new. People for millennia, thousands of years, have been doing techniques that evoke the relaxation response. Sure, it'll be different in each country has evoked, and each culture has evoked their own way of doing this. What we have done is make it acceptable in scientific terms, evidence-based terms, that bringing forth the relaxation response is a helpful, preventive, and therapeutic measure.
That's amazing. But what about the placebo effect? Where does it fit in this investigation about the relaxation response?
The placebo effect is really defining how belief can heal. Belief you are taking a medication that is changing, that can change your disease or do away with your pain and what have you, when it's a sugar pill, because you believe it's a real pill, can often bring about those changes. Now, we utilize the principle of the placebo effect when we give the person a choice of the technique that she or he chooses to use. It would be foolish to have an atheist have a prayer, or it would be foolish not to have a religious person use a prayer that she or he believes in. So when we build in that aspect of evoking the relaxation response, that is belief, by you're doing what you believe in, we can capture aspects of the placebo effect in an honest, straightforward way.
It's amazing. And as you were saying this, you are not telling the people that they should simply focus on this complementary alternative medicine approach. You're telling them to combine it, right?
That is a vital point that I want to emphasize. We have developed over hundreds of years awesome, powerful drugs, surgeries that can cure blindness, for example. It's remarkable what modern medicine has done. And it would be foolish, foolhardy, and even dangerous to believe that mind-body stress-related effects should be used alone. They should be used in combination with appropriate drugs and appropriate surgery. Sure, you might not require them if they're stress-related, but the point is, if you need a drug, for heaven's sakes, please take that drug, and that should be done under a healthcare physician's supervision. And what one can do is get a balanced approach to wellness. Think of it as a three-legged stool. Wellness as being a three-legged stool. One leg should be drugs. Another leg should be surgeries. And the third leg should be self-care. And part of that self-care leg is the relaxation response.
That's interesting. But specifically when you talk about how the relaxation response changes our gene expression, our gene activity, you talk about very sophisticated genetic analysis showing that the relaxation response can change the way genes interact and express themselves. Can you give us an example about one of the studies you've done that clearly bring forth this finding for us?
Yeah, what we have done is take normal people who have been evoking the relaxation response for many years, using various techniques. Some used meditation, some used prayer, some used yoga. And then take a blood sample And from their blood, we take the white blood cells. And from the white blood cells, we take the core of the cell, the nucleus of the cell, and through sophisticated tests, measure the activity of each of the 40 or 50,000 genes of the body. Then we take matching people of the same age, same race, same education, who have not been same sex, obviously, who have not been evoking the relaxation response, and measure their blood cells the same way and compare the two. And what we found was that those who were regularly bringing forth the relaxation response, regardless of method, some were praying, some were meditating, some were doing yoga, regardless of method, had different gene expressions. In other words, their genes were being turned on and being turned off, specific genes that were different from those who were not evoking the relaxation response. And then we asked, what were those genes controlling? And these are the genes that control the energy of the body. These are genes that control insulin, genes that control the immune system, and genes that control the aging of cells themselves. Then we took those people who were the controls. Those are people who had never evoked the relaxation response, and taught them how to do so. We gave them a simple technique in which they would sit quietly, close their eyes, relax their muscles, and on each out-breath, repeat a word, a sound, a prayer, or a phrase. And when other thoughts came to mind, they disregard them and come back to the repetition. And we had them do that for 8 weeks. Then we compared their genes' activity before they were doing the relaxation response and after they were doing it for 8 weeks. And lo and behold, we found changes, not as powerful, that were present in those doing it regularly, but we found these changes of the same genes. So this allows us to say, when you evoke the relaxation response, either short periods of time or long periods of time, you change your genes' activity, and the genes that are changed are the genes that are controlling many aspects of our health and well-being.
That's amazing. Dr. Benson, we are going to give a last break. When we come back, we have the ultimate question for you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
The United States Spiritist Council invites you to the 7th U.S. Spiritist Symposium to happen on April 20th in Fort Worth, Texas. The theme of the year is Life in the Spiritual World, the works of Andrea Lewis. More information at www.spiritistsymposium.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andrea Louise, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today. The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
We are back with Dr. Benson, and we're learning so much about the power of the mind in healing the body. Dr. Benson, you entitled the book Relaxation Revolution. Why do you think this is a revolution?
There's a revolution because there should be a revolution. We have become so dependent on simply drugs and surgeries. And of course, the drugs and surgeries work quite well and should be used, but drugs and surgeries don't work for stress-related disorders. And the revolution should incorporate people recognizing they have the power to heal themselves for stress disorders, stress-related diseases, and they should start using it on a regular basis. The revolution should come from that people should use their time to choose a technique that evokes the relaxation response so they could prevent and appropriately treat many different diseases.
That's amazing. So, Dr. Benson, we are very grateful for your time and especially for bringing forth this true revolution, as you mentioned. We truly believe that this is really going to change a lot of things in medical care and also in self-care, as you also said before. So we thank you very much. If you have any final message for the public at Kardec Radio, we would appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and I wish you well.
Thank you. We hope to have you here more often, and we thank you for your time and all your work of this decade. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed. I know you wanted more of Dr. Benson, but he's quite a busy man. And this is it. But, of course, you can listen to the whole interview again on demand at kardecradio.com or blogtalkradio.com/kardecradio or even at iTunes, because Kardec Radio is 24/7 because people can listen to us at their leisure, on demand, anytime, day or night, no matter where you are in the world. Kardec Radio is in much more than 61 countries around the world, and the program is not over because we have a lot to share. As Dr. Benson has said, we are in need of a new approach when we talk about medical care and self-care. And especially, we need to know that we are multidimensional beings. For multidimensional beings, we need a multidimensional approach. When we read the book, The Messengers by André Luiz through Chico Xavier, in the 3rd chapter of the book, he brings an analogy, and later in the book as well, in Life Goes On, an analogy about us as this multidimensional being spirit, spiritual body, or perispirit as we call in Spiritism, and physical body. To be healthy, we need a multidimensional approach. And Dr. Benson is this visionary mind that has been working for decades, bringing a true revolution to medical care. And if you want to know more, please go to the website relaxationrevolution.org and get to know about the book, which is fascinating. Or if you want to know more about Dr. Benson, he is at the Benson Harry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine. As you know, when he started being a doctor, physician, the word mind-body approach didn't exist, the expression. He's really one of the pioneers in the field, and we were honored to have him here with us. Well, we have much more, and right now, we want to share with you that Kardec Radio responds also to your questions. We are going to begin by answering to a question that was relayed to us by a listener that preferred to stay anonymous. And it is all about forgiveness. It's about forgiveness, and the question is, Spiritism teaches the simple precept to love unconditionally, to forgive always. Sometimes I wonder if this will make other people spoiled because we always forgive them without murmuring. They will develop the habit of abusing us. what is Spiritism's take on this? Well, the best answer for us, the best answer here comes not from the phone that you just listened to. This is the phone at Kardec Radio, but it's from a book psychographed also by Chico Xavier. The spirit author is the renowned Emmanuel. It's named O Consolador. Probably when it's translated, it says the Comforter. It's question and answer 344. Emmanuel addresses this very question. Should we allow other people to abuse us just in the name of forgiveness? Well, Emmanuel replies, the love of neighbor includes fraternal clarification whenever it is useful and necessary. The passive subjection to others' audacity and rudeness can amplify its process and its aggressiveness. At being subjected to abusive manifestations, the believer shall learn to dissolve them with the utmost serenity and wisdom, in order that they be exterminated in the source of their origin, without possibilities of revitalization of these manifestations. To clarify is also love. All that is needed is to know how to explain well without adding the damaging expressions of egocentrism, albeit with greater energy to prevent the prevalence of the error or the deviation from goodness. So, dear listener, if somebody is by any chance abusing us, we shall forgive. But forgiveness does not mean that we are going to let it happen over and over again. Emmanuel says, first step, do not be, and this is current science as well, saying emotional intelligence tells, do not be contaminated by somebody else's emotion. It's what science entitled emotional contagion. If somebody is unbalanced, it doesn't mean we're going to be unbalanced. We can keep our center. It's a practice. It takes a lot of practice and sometimes reincarnations for it. But that's the first step. Recognize that this is somebody else's emotion, not yours. Second step, whenever possible, do clarify things. Because he says, clarification is also love. So if you have a child that is abusing, because there are many children nowadays that abuse parents, it's our obligation of love to go and clarify with wisdom and serenity, says Emmanuel. Sometimes not at the very moment in which we are experiencing the abuse. And later, Emmanuel expresses, when you clarify, don't put yourself at the center of it because it's going to worsen it. Meaning, do not allow your person to be the center of attention in clarification. For example, let's say somebody is abusing us. And when we try to clarify, we start from the vantage point of our own self, saying, you know, you're doing this and it's hurting me, I'm upset, you know, it's making me feel bad, etc. That's the wrong approach, Emmanuel is saying. Because it's you versus the person. And for the person, it's the person versus you. So to shift the abuse, we need also to get out of our egocentric approach and talk from a more spiritual perspective. For example, a parent talking to a child, saying, look, what is this making you feel better about yourself? You're a child of God. If you keep on doing this, do you think you're going to approve of your own in the long run? Are you going to be approving of your own actions? It's not about the parent per se, but the person. and the relationship between the person and God. So, with that in mind, Emmanuel clearly says we shouldn't take abuse, but we shouldn't use the same tool by abusing others as well. So this is the way Kardec Radio is here every show, every Saturday, responding to your questions. All you need to do is keep sending your questions at kardecradio@gmail.com or at the contact form at kardecradio.com. Now we're going to listen to the beautiful segments provided by our hosts, from Kirsten DeMello to John DeRosa, Steve Shepard, Luis Sergio Marotta, Marco Magalhães, Bernadette Leal, James Marotta, and at the very end, don't go away because this is a treat for all of us today. The 7-year-old Teresa Wall says the Lord's Prayer for us. Stay there because there is a lot of food for the soul.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the Spiritist Moment, where we seek to, momentarily enrich your minds with the Spiritist thought and other adjunct literature that also equally helps to uplift our minds. Well, we are giving continuation to our study from the Spirit's Book, Part 3, in particular, The Law of Preservation, subcategory titled The Enjoyment of Material Things. We are finishing out, actually, this subcategory on question 714, and allow us to read it and also the sub-question 714A with its observation. And it states the following: what should be thought of those who seek to satisfy their tastes through all kinds of excesses? And the Spirit's answer: they are unfortunate creatures whom we should pity and not envy, because they are very close to death. Sub-question: is it physical or moral death that they are close to? And the Spirit's answer: both. So they go on to elaborate in the observation, and the Spirit state the following: those who seek to satisfy their tastes through excesses of all kinds place themselves below the animals, because animals at least know how to limit themselves to satisfying their needs. Such persons negate the reason that God has given them for their guidance, and the greater their excesses, the greater is the dominion they give their animal nature over the spiritual. The illnesses, ailments, and death that result from abuse are also punishments for transgressing God's law. So this is interesting for us to reflect for many different reasons, because we know that the laws of God are written in our conscience, and we know that the mechanisms that exist within our physical body, the makeup of the physical body, the feedback mechanisms, that when we eat a lot, our stomach communicates, in a general sense, to our brain saying, okay, you've eaten enough, but oftentimes we continue to eat. Or perhaps we do other things to excesses. We overdo our exercise. Believe it or not, there are some who do that. We obsessively do other things, even though we have mechanisms within us to tell us, hey, that's enough, or that's going too far. But we begin to create all these unnecessary needs, the spirits tell us in the Spirit's book. And thus we create a loop of many problems. So when the spirits tell us and talk about this moral death, so to speak, what it really is merely we are putting a temporary slowing of our evolution, because we know that our progress, our evolution never stops, never entirely. We can slow it down, but ultimately the law of progress keeps going, and we are always moving forward, some slower than others and some faster. So this is the moral death in part of what they're talking about. And naturally, the physical death would be obvious. When you do anything to excess, you wind up hurting the physical body and causing an early death, naturally. So what the spirits also teach us, and we learn through the spiritual literature, we learn, and also other different religions, different belief systems, in this belief of karma, and that we reap what we sow. And in Happy Life, Joanna DeAndres actually references something to that effect as well. When she tells us on page 82 of the book Happy Life, she states the following, and we quote, each individual brings with him the destiny that he has traced out for himself in past incarnation. And she also goes on to say on page 83 at the bottom, pain, however, may force him to carry out what he does not accomplish out of love. So something for us to think about. So we are, in part, co-creators in our own lives. We create circumstances in our lives, sometimes consciously or unconsciously, or we commit things, or we do things out of ignorance, or we do them out of excesses, even though the way that God has created us in such a way that we do have feedback mechanisms, and also spiritual assistants, our guardian angels, our guides, and those around us, informing us to get back on track, but even so, sometimes we fall. And what's beautiful is that equally in the book Happy Life, Joanna DeAngelis tells us that no one falls because they want to. We fall because we lack some type of moral strength or courage, or sometimes our weaknesses actually speak louder than our strengths. So it is also about building up this moral strength through this moral gym of learning, studying, and putting into practice at any moment, at every moment we have. And if we are finding moments in our lives where we feel weak, we always can utilize prayer. Prayer merely being the lifting up of our thoughts to our divine creator, asking for assistance, and just having a conversation with God, with our guardian angel, with our spirit guide, whichever term we choose to give it. But ultimately, God never places in our lives circumstances or things and doesn't give us the tools. Naturally, we have all the tools with us to accomplish our tasks, to fulfill our reincarnatory plan. We merely need to tune into these higher vibrations. So until next time, we encourage you to continue your own inner journey reflections. And as always, we wish you many blessings until next time.
The following partial recording was taken from the Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec.
The properties of matter. Question number 29. Is ponderability an essential attribute of matter?
Of matter as you understand it, yes, but not of matter considered as the universal fluid. The ethereal and subtle matter that forms this fluid is imponderable to you, and yet it is the very principle of your ponderable matter.
Author's footnote for ponderable. Ponderable, worth serious consideration or having appreciable weight, i.e., something material that can be studied. Author's remarks for question number 29. Ponderability is a relative property. Outside the gravitational pull of the globes, there is no weight, just as there is no up or down. Question number 30. Does matter consist of one or many elements?
One single primitive element. The bodies you regard as simple are not true elements, but rather transformations of the one primitive matter.
Question number 31. Where do the different properties of matter come from?
From the modifications that the elementary molecules undergo as a result of their combining under certain conditions.
Question number 32. Then wouldn't flavors, odors, colors, sounds, even the poisonous or healing qualities of certain bodies be no more than modifications of the one and the same primitive substance?
Yes, of course, and they only exist due to the disposition of the organs that are meant to perceive them.
Author's remarks for question number 32. This principle is proven by the fact that not all people perceive the qualities of objects in the same way. What one person finds tasty, another might find disgusting. What appears blue to one person may appear as red to another. Something that is poisonous for some might be harmless or even healthy for others. Question number 33. Is the same elementary matter capable of undergoing all possible modifications and acquiring all possible properties?
Yes, and this is what you should understand when we say that everything is in everything.
Author's footnote to everything is in everything. This principle explains the phenomenon known by all magnetizers, which consist in using willpower to confer very different properties upon any given substance. Water, for instance, a specific flavor, or even the active qualities of other substances. Since there is but one primitive element, and since the properties of different bodies are but modifications of this one element, it follows that the most innocent substance has the same underlying principle as the most harmful substance. Thus, water is made up of 1 part oxygen and 2 parts hydrogen, but becomes corrosive if the proportion of oxygen is doubled. An analogous transformation may be produced through magnetic action directed by the human will. Author's remarks for question number 33. Oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon, and all the other elements we consider to be simple are only modifications of the one primitive substance. As it is yet impossible for us to go back to this substance except by thinking about it, the elements truly are elements to us, and without further ado, we can consider them as such until further notice.
Sub-question number 33.
Doesn't this theory affirm the opinion of those who do not believe in more than only 2 essential properties of matter, force and movement, and who believe that all the other properties are only secondary effects that vary according to the intensity of the force and the direction of the movement?
This opinion is correct, but it should also add, according to the arrangement of the molecules. This may be seen, for example, in an opaque body that becomes transparent, and vice versa.
Question number 34. Do molecules have a defined form?
Certainly, molecules have a form, but you are incapable of discerning it.
Sub-question number 34.
Is this form constant or variable?
Constant for the primitive elementary molecules, but variable for the secondary ones, which are only aggregations of the former. However, what you term a molecule is still very far from being the elementary molecule.
Universal space. Question number 35. Is universal space infinite or limited?
Infinite. If it had limits, what would be beyond them? I know this baffles your reason, yet reason itself tells you that it can be no other way. The same is true of the idea of the infinite. You will never be able to comprehend it from your tiny sphere of thinking.
Author's remarks for question number 35.
Suppose we were to imagine a limit to space. No matter how far out our thought may place it, reason tells us that there still must be something beyond it, and so on and so forth to infinity. Even if there were only an absolute void beyond that limit, there would still be space. Question number 36. Is there an absolute void in any part of the universal space?
No, there is no void. What appears to you to be a void is actually occupied by matter that cannot be detected by your senses or instruments.
And by the way, dear listener, as the spirits explained to Kardec, this was said in 1857 when science didn't have clue whatsoever about the void, things that today quantum physics clearly explains that there is actually no void. So there is dark matter all around, and that's how they name it, but we know, as the Spirit said. So this is quite interesting because we're going to see that Spiritism is at the forefront of human knowledge. And by reading and studying it, we will expedite our progress. That's how Spiritism impacts on humanity. There's so much. The context of the time in which Spiritism was brought along in 1857 was very interesting. In a week from now, Michael Team is going to be here with us talking more about the context in which Spiritism was brought forth and mediums of the time. It's about resurrecting Leonora Piper in his most recent book, launched this very year. Right now, we're going to open the line for the very John DeRosa. John DeRosa is right here with us, and he has a comment to relay to Kardec Radio. Hi, John. How are you? Thank you for being with us at Kardec Radio.
Oh, I'm just fine. Thanks for letting me on the air again.
All right. Yeah, we just listened to you, and that's fascinating. So, John, you had a comment about Dr. Benson's
yes,
statement?
I thought it was just so relevant to us that are into Spiritism that he used that word evoke to talk about bringing on the relaxation technique. And it just kind of struck me as so interrelated to Spiritism when he used that word.
That is true. And it's fascinating because when Kardec wrote the book, the word evocation was much in vogue because the behavioral scientists were just stepping in the understanding of evoking behavioral responses. And Kardec also adopted the term evocation in regards to evoking the spirits because it was quite a parallel to what the behavioral scientists were investigating regarding the evocation of new behaviors. And here we have the scientist, Dr. Benson, adopting the same term, which is very appropriate, as you mentioned, to talk about the importance of learning to evoke this relaxation response in all of us. Yeah, you're right, John. Anything else?
And as you were talking, I was thinking, what are we invoking? We're invoking our spirit to settle down, to calm down, to not go toward the negative, as he was pointing out in his talk. It's so very easy for most of us that were raised to evoke that negative side, and so very difficult to learn how to bring the positive side into play.
You're right. It's the evocation of the best in all of us. You're right, John. That's a good reflection. We thank you much for being with us at Kardec Radio today again, and for bringing forth that reflection for our listener. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, dear listener, right now, we're going to keep streaming to you the segment that was put together for this very program by Luis Sergio Marotta. You want to know more about Spiritism? We know it, because Spiritism is quite fascinating. It's a science of the spirit. And it brings to us the understanding of the Christ consciousness. And here it is, Luis Sergio Marotta, for you on the Gospel and Spiritism.
Well, dear listener, in the past 9 segments of our program, we have tackled some issues from the introduction of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Here are some of the points we highlighted. why the explanation of the spirits have proved more efficient than the ones incarnate theologians and religious people had brought up before. They, the spirits, had no such earthly interests, and therefore could come up with some principles and variables that worked as a key to our understanding of Jesus' life and doctrine. Kardec explains that the focus of our studies in the Gospel according to Spiritism is on the moral aspect. Why the moral aspect? Because all the other aspects and issues in the Gospel had been worked up by many of those who studied the Bible to produce the focus on dogmas alone and their usual consequences, that is, fights, wars, and endless numbers of Christian denominations. We pointed out that Jesus clearly did not aim at dogmas, but on the contrary, he aimed at making it clear that loving God above all things and your neighbor as yourself was the most important law, and that we should avoid denying that law in order to accomplish minor laws. We brought Dr. Anton Zeilinger speaking on quantum physics just to illustrate the fact that when we have a new phenomenon to which classical explanations fail to do the job, several theories come from here and there, causing different segments and followers of those theories to come to a conflict. But eventually, when some key principles are unveiled, everybody can now get around the table and talk. This is the purpose of the Spiritist doctrine, and not the creation of a new religion despite its religious aspect. Then we outlined the method through which Allan Kardec approached the idea of diving into the Spirit's teachings and the authority of those teachings. How what we call apostolic mediums are a great tool to access spiritual knowledge without so much interference of the cultural, personal characteristics of the medium. Then we outlined the method through which Allan Kardec approached the idea of diving into the Spirit's teachings and the authority of these teachings. How what we call apostolic mediums are a great tool to access the spiritual knowledge without so much interference of the cultural or personal characteristics of the medium. We showed passages from the Gospel that can help us follow the instructions of the apostles Paul and John when he says that we should not believe in all the spirits, but first we need to know if that spirit comes from God. We cited Dr. Sam Parnia and his renowned research on near-death experiences, saying that he studies the phenomena, but he could not take on account the subjective information that came through the phenomena. We explained that Kardec did that job. He assessed the physical phenomena, but also looked into the intellectual phenomenon. By doing so, he came across this wonderful, fantastic framework called Spiritist doctrine, which has not come from theological tables or academic rooms, but from the people, the mediums from all over the world. We spoke about the likeness of the Spiritist doctrine to the thoughts of Socrates and Plato, and explained that Socrates combated the paganism as well, for those who may think Allan Kardec was supporting pagan doctrines. We even pointed out that their doctrine resembles Jesus' doctrine in its main moral aspect. We showed a dialogue between Kardec and a Catholic priest. In it, Kardec explains that the focus of a Spiritist must be the moral one, that spirits believe in God, the afterlife, with the soul keeping their individual aspect, the free will, the punishment and rewards, and the law of love, as taught by Jesus. Having this as the main target, the other points come to help, but they cannot top these first moral principles. So we won't engage in religious fights as Jesus himself didn't. Then we compared the traditional so-called seance to a true Spiritist mediumistic meeting and brought to you a passage of the Corinthians by the Apostle Paul, showing how to monitor a prophetic meeting and explaining that that is the way Spiritists must deal with that subject. Well, my friend, we have only picked up on some highlights we prepared for you, but we are far from covering all the important points Allan Kardec was able to cover, so you should read it and study it yourself or in groups. From the next segment on, we will start working on the first chapter of this amazingly clarifying and comforting book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. Thank you so much.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Listen to our sister radio, Buzzera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children 2 paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listener. Welcome to our segment, Spiritism in Your Life. Today we're going to spend a few minutes discussing a very interesting topic, which is very relevant and it's being widely discussed nowadays, which is the effects of prayer and faith in the outcomes of our diseases. The first thing we need to discuss is when we look at scientific results published recently on this topic, most of them are going to be inconclusive. And the reason behind all this is that most studies measure as an outcome the effects of the disease in the body, whether the patient was cured or whether the disease was less severe if the patient prayed or if he had faith. And this is very interesting because, as Allan Kardec mentioned in chapter 27 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, it will be logical to conclude from this maxim: whatever you may ask for in prayer will be granted to you. That is enough simply to ask in order to receive, and it will be unjust to accuse Providence if it does not grant every request made, because it knows better than we do what is best for us. The same applies to a wise father who refuses his son things that are not in his best interest. Generally, humans see only the present. However, if suffering is useful for their future happiness, God will allow them to suffer, just as a surgeon allows the sick person to suffer an operation that should bring healing. Let us discuss this for a moment now. The reason why it is so difficult for science to fully comprehend the effects of prayer is because this is a very complex system. First, because most of us do not really understand what prayer is. Secondly, most of us don't even have an idea exactly what God is. And thirdly, because we do not receive everything we pray for. And it's been clearly discussed by many people, including Allan Kardec. God is the one that knows exactly what we need. And of course, many situations that we go through and endure through life, including certain diseases, are consequences of our own decisions. So, we have to go through this in order for us to achieve what we want, which is our evolution. So that's why when you're doing the research and you're measuring as a result of your faith whether you're cured or not, probably you will never get a positive result or a positive association. Simply because cure does not necessarily mean getting rid of the disease. How many people are cured and still have their physical diseases? Being cured in a more complex and comprehensive sense is way more than overcoming a physical disease, but it's rather growing up, evolving in your eternal existence. It is important to say that recently, most scientists started to understand this concept, and papers are now showing a significant positive correlation between prayer and faith, and less depression, anxiety, more optimism, greater levels of spiritual experience, better psychological outcomes out of the diseases. And overall, if you talk to people that went through these difficulties, most of them will refer to you that they've learned quite a lot when they go through many of these disease processes with faith. And this is what we understand as the positive effects of prayer. Of course, in very specific situations, indeed, if you deserve it, you can receive what you call the physical cure. But these are very specific cases. Allan Kardec continues on the same chapter, what God will grant them, if asked with trust, is courage, patience, and resignation. What God will also grant them are the means to extricate themselves from their difficulties with the aid of ideas suggested by good spirits at God's urging, thus leaving them the merit. God helps those who help themselves, according to this maxim, help yourself, and heaven will help you, and not those who hope for outside help without making use of their own faculties. Usually, however, one would rather be helped by a miracle without having to do anything. And unfortunately, my friends, that's still the understanding of many people around us. And it's up to us to change our view on our responsibility and our actions and what we have to do when we endure difficult situations. We have to work and work hard, always. Let's take one example, similar to the one Allan Kardec describes in the chapter 27 in the Gospel according to Spiritism. Imagine that you're going through a very difficult time with an aggressive and difficult physical disease. You've been praying consistently to receive a miraculous cure, but you've never got it. Suddenly, one day, you're inspired with these very good ideas about ways for you to go through these difficulties. And at the same time, someone comes by with new ideas on how to help you deal with the disease. Eventually, those decisions lead you to your so desired physical cure. If you have faith, you'll say, "Thank you, God, for the thought you inspired me. Thank you, God, for the thought you inspired in me and for the strength you have given me." Or, if you do not have faith, you may say, "What a good thought I had. What good luck I had by making this decision." Sometimes chance really does serve us well. Well, dear listeners, unfortunately, most of us still attribute to chance the help we receive on a daily basis from our spiritual friends and from God. And that's why it's so complicated for our science nowadays to really understand and explain scientifically the help we need from above, the help we receive from above. Thank you very much, my friends, and God bless us.
Welcome to our Yes, Youth Education and Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Liao, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring a spiritual awareness and spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today we'll answer the following question. Why is it so hard for some parents to detach themselves from their children as they grow up? Oh, what a wonderful memory of when a mother delivers her baby and holds her bundle of joy in her arms for the first time. It is a great feeling that connects the child and the parents who surround their child with love. Therefore, it is very natural that parents want to protect their children, doing their best to raise them to become responsible, loving, and successful adults. When raising a child, parents and children bond and develop an attachment. John Bowlby, the first attachment theorist, explains that attachment is a lasting psychological connectedness between human beings. Children need a secure attachment when growing up so they can feel protected, knowing that they will receive the comfort and care they need. Studies show that children who did not have a secure attachment during their infancy and growing up have problems with relationships. But although parents want to protect and help their children, overprotection and extreme attachment are not healthy for the parent or the child, leading to codependency and some type of behavior disorder. Chapter 14 of the Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec, Item 8, explains that the parent's duty is to help with the intellectual and moral development of the child in order to further progress. So, let's think about a child progressing by picturing in our minds a long stairs. Then, see yourself and your child at the bottom. Your goal as a parent is to help, teach, and encourage the child to move up the stairs on his own. When a parent is too overprotective and very attached to the child, he is not allowing him to progress. Instead, the parent is keeping the child at the bottom of the stairs or on the first steps. Here are some questions that can help you to reflect upon the level of attachment to your child. Ask yourself, if you died today, and we know this may not be a very pleasant thought, how would my child be? Would he be independent? Could he take care of himself or some basic needs on his own? Does he usually make good decisions? Does he depend mostly on me to make decisions? What about his feelings and behavior? How does he usually handle challenges? And after reflecting on some of these questions and answers without denial, then decide on what issues you and your child need to work on and make some improvement. But preparing a child for life and be able to live one day on his own also involves having moral and spiritual knowledge and be able to put them into practice when needed. Parents should teach their children about love, patience, understanding, forgiveness, and humbleness of heart. And it is very important that they are truly able to treat others the way they want to be treated, as Jesus and many other enlightened spirits who lived on earth taught us. But why do some parents have such a hard time detaching themselves from their children and not allowing them to learn through their own experiences as they get older? Well, one reason is fear. Parents are afraid of not being there to protect their child when he needs, and they would feel guilty if something bad happened to him. Or the parent is very needy, and is the parent who is possessive and wants the child to be his companion, raising the child for himself in a very egotistic way. Parents can also become overprotective because they have high expectations on their child and want to make sure that he will succeed according to their expectations. In fact, there are parents that want their children to fulfill their own dreams. These are parents who had or have a certain passion in life when growing up, or as an adult, they were not able to fulfill their dreams. And now, they pressure their child to be the best at a sport, a profession, or a hobby that the parents always wanted to be, instead of allowing the child to choose their own path. Parents may say that they act that way because they want what is the best for their child, but it is actually selfishness. Remember, a child is a unique spirit with his own goals and a history to fulfill. On the other hand, we also have neglecting parents who go to the other extreme of being very detached from their children. They rely on friends, school teachers, the society, and the outside world to educate their children, denying their parental responsibility and being a failure on raising their children. These parents will answer for their actions when they return to the spiritual realm. Spiritism, with its wonderful teachings about reincarnation, also explains that a strong attachment between a parent and child can be connected with their previous life. A parent who in this present life is in a relationship of mother and son could have been together in the past life as wife and husband. Kardec Radio listeners, it is natural that loving parents want to protect their children, but everything needs to be done with moderation. Too much attachment and overprotection are impediments to a healthy growth of a child. Children learn and mature through their own experiences, even if that means making poor choices sometimes. Keep in mind that parents are here to mentor their children, to educate them, to show and lead them the way, but not to do the work for them. We invite you today to reflect upon your parental skills, your level of attachment to your child, and how much you are helping him to progress in this present life and preparing him for his future reincarnation. Thanks for listening to Yes. And if you have any questions that would like us to answer here in the segment, please email them to Kardec at kardecradio.com.
We will return to our program after these messages.
The United States Spiritist Council invites you to the 7th U.S. Spiritist Symposium to happen on April 20th in Fort Worth, Texas. The theme of the year is Life in the Spiritual World, the works of André Lewis. More information at www.spiritistsymposium.org.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Would you like to liberate yourself from your life struggles or to find inner balance? The Inner Journey CD has 3 beautiful visualizations that will help you bring harmony to your life. As Joanna DeAngeli tells us to, live in a way that you leave enlightening footprints in your pathway as if they were stars pointing out the pathway to happiness. To find the CD, go to the bookstore on the Spiritist Society of Baltimore webpage, www.ssbaltimore.org. That is www.ssbaltimore.org, and start your inner journey today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now available for purchase, the book Chico Xavier, Medium of the Century by Guy Léon Playfair. This is the first biographical and critical study in English of one of the outstanding mediums of all time, through whom more than 450 books were received by automatic writing over a 70-year period, few of which, until recently, were available in English translations. Purchase your copy today at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com, www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
And now we return to our program.
Kardec Radio Interviews.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners. We are here today at the Third Spiritist Federation of Florida Conference Banquet of Love, if we can call it that, entitled Mediumship, a Human Attribute. We are here with today the president of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, Marcelo Neto, a great friend and a great heart. Marcelo, for our listeners of Kardec Radio, can you briefly just share with us something a little bit about the Federation and just about today and the love that, fortunately or unfortunately, our listeners either were able to partake in, those who came here today or those who weren't. Can you share with them a little bit of the heart that was here today?
Well, first of all, I would like very much this opportunity. I would like to say thank you for the Kardec Radio and its team. It's fantastic, the job that you guys are doing. And, the Federation of Florida, Spiritist Federation of Florida, was first established in April 18 in 1987. So it was first formed by a group of Spanish people, Colombian guy by the name Benjamin Rodriguez, and he was in love of the Spiritist teachings. So he went to Brazil, he studied a little bit about Spiritism, and he met Divaldo Franco, and then he decided first he was formed a Spiritist center in Miami, which is Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Center. And then a few years later, like 2 years later, he decided to agglomerate, if I can use this word, a few entities that were like spread around the city of Miami and try to establish a link, a bridge between all these spiritual centers. So the work developed and it grows a lot. So many other many other presidents came. They did a wonderful job, a fantastic job. And what we are doing at this moment, just giving the continuation, humbleness, because we made mistakes. There's a learning process. Being ahead of the Spiritist movement in the state of Florida, it's a tremendous experience because we don't have all the answers. But the good thing is we get to know each other, and we get to visit the houses and the centers, and exchanging these kind of experiences that they all have. We come up with, at least in our knowledge, the best solution to, at this present moment, to spread Spiritism. So the idea to create this event came when we first took over the federation like 4 years ago, and from now on it's okay. It's growing. So we have more and more volunteers, more groups adhered. If I can use part of my English, sometimes I made a whole bunch of mistakes. It's the emotion that I'm still carrying because of the event just finished, and this is what I truly believe. We can study a lot. We can be like PhDs in Spiritist doctrine, which doesn't exist. We all know this. But if we don't add heart, if we don't make the bridge between the mind, the brain, and the heart, we're simply going to be another group of religious people. And since the Spiritist doctrine is the promised consoler, what is a promised consoler brings to us? Consolation by the word of Jesus Christ. Not Jesus Christ as a man, Jesus Christ as a message that we still don't understand, and we are struggling to understand. But I don't know any other way to find the answer but together, sharing ideas, experiences, being humble to accept that sometimes we might be wrong, and we have the chance to correct our trajectory if we accept that we might be wrong, and putting our hearts in the first place and giving value to people, even with the difficulties that they face, because not everyone has the same knowledge, the knowledge that we think we have, but we still don't have. I can remember Paul of Tarsus. If I don't have charity, if I don't have love in my heart, I'm just going to be empty. So it's a learning process. It's a learning process, and I will make mistakes. It's human. Everybody makes mistakes. But God grants me wisdom through His good spirits to whisper in my ears, to be humble, and to accept that I might be wrong. I don't know if I would like to ask me more questions. I don't know.
That was very inspiring for us. That, dear listeners, if you are opening your heart at this moment, you're able to feel just a small snapshot of what we felt all day, and the love of truly the implanted gospel that Jesus, and like you said, not the usual Jesus that we may see on the cross, but a Jesus that steps down from the cross and embraces us as a dear father would, or a loved one would, rather. So we thank you, Marcelo, and we thank obviously all the volunteers and everybody involved in this for allowing us to partake in this banquet. It was renewing, not just for us, but we saw there are many hearts today that were touched. And like you said, this is what it's about. We thank you. And to our dear listeners, we invite you to check out at the website of the Spiritist Federation of Florida. Marcelo, if you could just tell our listeners, if you know the web address, information, if they're passing through Florida, and the next upcoming event. Givaldo's going to be here back in April 8th and the 9th here in Florida.
7, 8, and 9. Yes, Givaldo is going to be back in Florida on April 7, April 8, and April 9. So we are going to have like 3 little small events, not the same magnitude as the one that we just had. We're going to have like one was going to be a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be 7, one on Monday, and one Friday. And the website of the Spiritist Federation is www.spiritistfederation.us. And you can browse and to find out and discover the events that are going on at this present moment.
Thank you so much, Marcel. And we wish you all the many blessings, dear listeners. Until next time.
Well, dear listener, this was the show today at Kardec Radio. And right now, we remind you that there is a program next week on Resurrecting Leonora Piper by Michael Thiem. He's going to be telling us much about Kardec's time, the context of the time. Dr. William James from Harvard University, who actually received a message, actually sent a message through the medium Chico Xavier and the help of the spirit brother X, or Humberto de Campos. Next week, there is much more for us to learn about it. And by the way, we are here also on Facebook, and we got to know of Beto Cabral's comment, which is a way for us to share to Kardec Radio listener. If you are there thinking that we are here to promote strange practices in the center, we are not. We're just bringing everything that Kardec exemplified to us. Science and Spiritism in the Genesis by Kardec must walk hand in hand, and we need to open our minds. So we would ask our dear Beto Cabral to reconsider his comment on Facebook, because we are here not promoting the entrance of any strange practices in the center, because Dr. Benson today was here at Kardec Radio telling us about the importance of evoking the relaxation response to live better. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, they recommend in a very passage, care for body and spirit, and that's what Kardec Radio is doing here, caring for body and spirit with the help of science as well, bridging Spiritism and science. We are here reinforcing that prayer is the best mechanism to trigger relaxation response, and we need to be very open-minded and not, please do not twist Kardec Radio's approach. We would ask you, if you know what we're talking about, reply to us at Facebook/Kardec Radio or at KardecRadio.com. We have a contact form, and we would kindly ask our friend Beto Cabral to really reconsider his comment, because it's not fair to the efforts of Kardec Radio. Right now, we invite everyone who is listening to us to pray. It's the Lord's Prayer in the very voice of Teresa Wall. She's only 7 years old. She has come a long way of learning Spiritism, and she is kind and has recorded this prayer for all of us. We pray with her now.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
So, dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed the whole show today. Next week, it's about the mediumship of Leonora Piper and about the investigation by renowned names like William James. We will also bring to you the very recording of the passage in which William James brings a message, 20 questions that were asked by Brother X to William James in the spirit realm, right here at Kardec Radio next week. It was published in a book among brothers of other lands. There is so much to learn. There is so much food for the soul. We are here to nourish your soul with Kardec Radio. Until next time, lots of blessings. Let us stay under the guidance and protection of God always.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.